Wolfman has fascinated people for many, many, many years, virtually nearly 100 years now, because there is an uncertainty. I think Freud himself was always uncertain, and Wolfman became a sort of professional patient. It became his career.
I think it's hard to think of a case that's more important than the Wolfman in the history of psychoanalysis, both because the concepts that it develops are central and remain central in psychoanalytic thinking. Secondly, because it's become a kind of mythic story in its own right, and it's been so widely explored by filmmakers and other storytellers as well as other interpreters.
What interests me in this case history is it gives you this sweep of history in which the Wolfman is inserted, which raises a very interesting question. Does analysis help you to live, to put it very simply? And he lived in very interesting times, as the Chinese say. And it remains for me, open question, whether there is such a thing as a cure. Analysis seems to be a sort of life commitment, like writing.
The story is not pretty. It's a story about his neurosis, his obsessions, his impossibility to live a normal life, whatever we understand by this. And his attempts to cure himself, yeah. It's not really a typical graphic novel material, and I'm interested in things which are a little bit out of ordinary. Equally, it's a very strong narrative. There is a story there. It's a detective story almost.
What's most poignant about the case history of the Wolfman is his dream, and this is why he's called the Wolfman, about this pack of wolves on a walnut tree.
It's interesting, given that this is a graphic novel, that the patient in a way offers a kind of graphic to Freud. He offers a picture of the wolves on the tree to Freud, as though there's something about visualizing it and actually seeing it there as a sketch that seems to be important to the patient.
And that's him when he sees his dream, really. So he's absolutely petrified, and the fear is totally, is I think, on his face, but it's also in the way that he is. He's pressed into this. There's no way he will get out of it. And that's his sort of mental state throughout the book, really. He stayed there.
He's lying in bed, the sense that suddenly the windows bang open, and he sees these white wolves sitting on a walnut tree, staring at him, as if they're trying to tell him something. He screams, wakes, and that dream is the really central nub of the whole case history.
The artwork in the book is made by me using collage, effectively. I draw things and then I cut them out and move them around all over the place and see what works, really. So it is quite an organic way of working. Every single element of the page is hand-drawn or painted. And I think it works perfectly, actually, for this story, because Wolfman himself he's a guy who's constantly on the verge of almost falling apart mentally. His whole story is chaos, effectively.
That's the sort of messy script that I actually write. Nobody can read that, not even me, actually. And eventually it leads to the layouts, which is the little thumbnail sketches.
What attracted me to the story in particular, I think, is definitely the dark imagery. It's not incredibly obviously scary, not no snarling kind of faces of wolves, but strange, but sort of like something that you're looking at and you know that it's terrible. It puts a spell on you, in a sense.
It's an enormous canvas which takes you from Tsarist times to First World War, Bolshevik Revolution, the loss of the Wolfman's enormous fortune, into the period of Hitler, and so on and so forth. It's a virtual 100 years.
The interweaving of this story is very beautifully done as a narrative study, but I don't think one should ever sort of settle and sort of think that's it, that's concluded. And indeed, part of the richness of the case, which it laid out for us, is that it invites new readings based on further experience, on other perspectives that don't necessarily cancel out what Freud says, but might enrich or complicate.
It gave Freud a lot of trouble. He understood that Freudian psychoanalysis stands or falls on this case.